who is raising that question, you can put your name here, and then what is your question, what is the answer, who answered it, and who reviewed it, right? Until this one is basically settled. Review, by the way, yeah. Mali pa. Right. Tama ba yung spelling ko ng review? Yeah, I think so. The same thing with tax. So any questions related to bookkeeping is on a separate tab, and then another set of question on another tab, right? So just, this would help us establish a sort of a knowledge hub, right? Or we can say not directly, let's call it knowledge hub. So again, this prevents, clogging, or not clogging, inundating the GCs for questions that may have already been answered, right? So again, if any questions, anything, those can be done here. So especially now that we have mini groups, merong iba na medyo helpful yung team members sa isang GC, tapos meron na silang mga discussions doon, para naman hindi ma-left behind yung other groups. You know what I mean? Does it sound good to you? Or does it appeal so good to you? Especially nice, or now that we have mini groups, merong iba na medyo so helpful how to access this. I'll share you guys a link GC to this. I'll share you guys a link, and it will be an edit link. So just, be careful when editing it, so you don't delete everything, or you're not making any changes that is gonna cause the sheet to get messed up, right? So that's the sheet, and you can put it as a bookmark. I don't know if you're fond of doing bookmarks, but that's what I actually do. So anything that's, say, borderless accountant, for example, I put that as a bookmark folder, and then so that anything that relates to borderless accountant, I put that as a bookmark under that folder. It's pretty accessible, right? So it's convenient. So if you're using Chrome or any browser, just put that as part of your bookmark. All right. Yeah, so you have to bookmark that by putting a star. This is how you bookmark it. Putting a star, and then make sure that you put it on a folder or a bookmark folder, so that your bookmark field would not be too many, right? So that's how you would, that's how I keep myself organized. All right, so that's about that. And I hope you guys can, make this useful, add stuff in here that you feel are important and that are worth sharing to everyone in the community. All right, everything good with this? Yeah, this is an idea from Daisy. She messaged me in Messenger, and I instantly loved it. So that's why I'm sharing it to you guys. All right, questions, clarifications, reactions, or anyone who wants to share anything? Or are we good? I'm only using one screen, so because I'm outside right now, I don't see you guys. Again, because I'm only having one screen at the moment. But we're good, right? Joseph, I am good.
Oh, good, Chris.
Very good. Share ko lang yung aking location ngayon at the moment para manginggit. Charit. Let me just stop sharing for now. Para lang maintindihan yun sa anak ko ngayon. Kaya hindi ako makapag-share ng dalawang screen or ng, I don't know. Tingnan ko muna yung background ko. So, this is what I was talking about. I'm in Solaya. Kaso pag gabi na, hindi na makakita yung buong view. Right, so it's very quiet. Tapos yung infinity pool na yan, it's actually may sea view dun sa somewhere far. Basta it's beautiful naman siya ngayon, but it's even more beautiful at during the daytime. It's gorgeous. Nasa ano to? Nasa Anda, Bohol, which is 45 minutes from our place in Mabini. Right. So that's about that location. If mapunta kayo dito, we'll show you around. I love their coffee. I love their food. Hindi naman kamahalan. Yeah, it's beautiful in here. Anyways, sige, back to the regular programming. Right. So yesterday we talked about cash flow, and we already know what the use of cash flow is. And yesterday I was going to show you a cash flow from Citisac Online, but I figured if you guys want to know more about, say, cash flow or anything like that, or any use of a financial statements, you can actually go to any website of a publicly listed company in the Philippines. Say, for example, BDO. And if you want to see an example of a financial statements, whenever you're in a website of a publicly listed company, when I say publicly listed, they are selling their shares in the stock market, right? And in the Philippines, we only have one stock market, which is the Philippine stock market, PSE, right? And so whenever you're in a website of a publicly listed company, go to investor relations. That's always the place where you can get the financial statements of that company. So you go to investor relations, and then usually you'd go to financials, right? And then see, here are the financials. For 2025, they only have the quarterly financials so far for BDO first quarter, second quarter. And then if you go to 2024, you will see their annual report, right? And then so is if you go to 2023. And then if you want to go to quarterly basis, you will also see it there. Again, any publicly listed company will have that. Let's say, for example, BPI as well. It's another publicly listed company. Again, you want to go to investor relations. So it could be somewhere, but let's say with BPI, you go to about us. Let's see, where would that be? BPI. Yeah, about BPI. And then you go again to investor relations. And then from there, you would see their financial statements here. So here you can view the financial statements on a yearly basis, on a quarterly basis. And again, that financial statements you already know by now contains the income statement, the balance sheet, cash flow, the statement of changes in equity. And for publicly listed companies, they also include the notes to financial statements, or otherwise known as disclosures, right? So you also know by now that financial statements, maraming stakeholders yan, maraming may interest sa financial statements. It's not just the owner, but it also could be the general public. It could also be the investors, could be the creditors. But most of the time, it's the owners, right? Especially pag maliliit lang na business. But pag lumago na yung business, that's when, of course, they would need sophisticated reporting. That's when they would need CPAs, auditors, and stuff like that. But for small companies, they would most likely need bookkeepers who would also act as their accountant at the same time. So baka magtaka kayo, bookkeepers and accountants, they may be used interchangeably, but to be blunt about it, bookkeeper, yung work niya is more of recording up until the production of financial statements. Accountants could encompass more than just that, right? It could be interpreting the financial statements, providing ratios, providing budgets, forecasts, could probably even do audit, right? So if you want to be specific about the role, and if it's only bookkeeping, then the expectation there is only up until the production of financial statements. If it's accounting role, it's going to be a different story, right? So yan lang. Questions on that? Reactions? Or we're good? All right. If you have questions, just raise your hand because I'm not seeing your faces at the moment because again, I only have one screen. Okay. And with that said, let us continue where we left off yesterday. Let me just pull up my training tab. So we're almost done. And I guess before we end the day today, we would be finished with the first portion of the lesson, which is the basics of bookkeeping. Right, so bookkeeping basics, and then after which we'll be proceeding with the reconciliation, tracking your expenses, liabilities, and equity, and then the assets. So we're almost done with bookkeeping basics. And we are recording this session, right? Just okay, we're good. Right, so let me just wait for this to load. So we are on the summary activity already. Time to practice. So setting up the scene, your client is seeking clarity on the relevance of different financial statements for a specific task. I think we've done this already, haven't we? Right, we've done that part. Let me see what this one is. I think we're done with the equity, right? All right, I think we're up until here now. Right. So in this, what you see on your screen, right, are information about cash. So you got net cash provided by operating, investing, financing, and then at the end of the report, you see the cash balance at the end of the period. So the question is, what is this financial statement? What is it? Is it a balance sheet? Is it an income statement? Is it a statement of cash flow? Or is it statement of equity? What is your answer, guys? So it's C, statement of cash flows. Yeah, tama si Alma. Maraming users ng financial statements. All right, so let's hit that submit button. And yeah, we are correct. Next, how is the cash flow helpful? What's the benefit of a cash flow statement? So we have four choices. First is it gives a partial picture of where money goes since it shows all the expenses. However, if money was spent to pay back a liability, then that would reflect on the balance sheet. So this is an incorrect statement because we already know this refers to the income statement, correct? It gives a snapshot of the assets, liabilities, and equity for a given reporting period, but it doesn't show how they have changed. This is also incorrect because this refers to a balance sheet. Next, it helps in understanding how cash is generated and utilized within a business, but does not directly reflect the profitability of or financial performance of a business. This sounds like the answer, but let's finish the choices. Last one is it evaluates business profitability by analyzing changes in retained earnings, which represent accumulated profits over time. However, it may not provide enough information for external users to assess the business's financial performance and position. So I guess the answer is letter C, and I think everyone is in agreement. So let's hit that submit button. And yeah, that's right. The statement of cash flows helps in understanding how cash is generated and utilized within a business, but does not directly reflect the profitability or financial performance of a business. All right, so here we have a client question. He says, it seems like I really need to look at all of the financial reports to understand what is going on with my business. Is that correct? So he's asking your opinion. It seems like I really need to look at all the financial reports to understand what is going on with my business. What is your answer? That's correct, right? He should be looking at all the financial statements, not just the income statement, not just the balance sheet, but it's supposed to be everything, right? So how do we or what do we say to him? Select all that apply. All right, let's check all of these choices. First is, yes, each report shows only a small part of the picture. This sound to be correct, right? It shows a part of the picture. So let's tick that. Next is, yes, each report provides unique insights into different aspects of your business, financial performance, and position. This also seemed to be correct. Let's look at the last one. Yes, by analyzing all three reports together, you can gain a comprehensive understanding of your business's financial performance. This also seemed correct. So looks like all of the statements are correct. And I guess you guys have the same answer. So let's hit that submit button. And yes, we are doing a great job. All of the statements are true. Let us now continue. Remember, in order to see the complete picture, each statement needs to connect and work with the others. Only then can a business owner really get a sense of the financial health of their business, right? Because if you look at the income statement, you're looking at the result of the business, basically how the business performed during a certain period. If you look at the balance sheet, that's gonna tell you a story of the financial position of the business, right? So how much are the assets, how much are liability, and how much are equity. And then if you look at the cash flow, it's going to tell you a story of how the cash flow or the activities relating to cash movements, right? So each financial statement offer a different set of information. Right. So 8 out of 9. Show what you know. Right. So this is the part where we again answer together questions so we can get 100% score. Okay, so let's start. Question number 1. Alex needs to determine what the business's financial position was on March 31st of last year. Which of the following would be the best report to look at? So, sabi dito financial position, right? What as of March 31st. So is that a balance sheet? Is that income statement? Is it statement of equity or a statement of cash flows? The answer would be balance sheet, right? Because income statement would provide you financial performance. Statement of equity would be information of how the changes of equity look like throughout the year. And cash flows are, again, statement of cash activities during the period. So the answer should be letter A. No problem, Charlene. No problem. Pagaling ka. Right? I hope you feel better. So let's take this. Balance sheet is the answer. Everyone is in agreement. I guess so. Right? Let's hit that submit button. And correct. The balance sheet reports a business's assets, liabilities, and equity at a specific point in time. Alex can use this to determine the financial position of the day needed. Right. Second question. Ridley owns a tractor supply business and called to ask how much they had taken out of the business in draws this year and how much retained earnings remained in the business. Which financial statement should you refer to for this information? Is it the balance sheet? Is it income statement? Is it the statement of equity? Or is it the statement of cash flows? So this is related to Ridley's ownership of the business. So he wants to know how much drawing he made during the year and what is the story about the retained earnings. So it could be a balance sheet, right? But let's look at the choices here. So you have balance sheet, which could be an answer. Income statement, no way can be an answer. You have statement of equity. This is more specific, which I think would be the best answer. And they have statement of cash flows. Right. So I guess everybody is in agreement that it's the statement of equity. Again, when you're attacking a problem or a question, make sure that you read all the choices. Okay, because it could also be balance sheet, but the best answer here is a statement of equity, I think, or we think. But let's hit submit so we know for sure. And that's indeed correct. The statement of equity is used to show the change to the owner's equity in a business during the given reporting period. Right, let's move on to the next question. Ellis, the owner of a yarn store, wants to know where the majority of cash originated from this past quarter. Which financial statement should you refer to? So this is something to do with cash, the origination of cash. Saan daw nagaling yung cash for the past quarter? So the choices are, would it be the balance sheet, the income statement, statement of equity, or the statement of cash flows? So the answer would be cash flow because it relates to the cash activity during the quarter, right? And everybody also has the same answer. So let's hit that submit button. And it's indeed correct. The statement of cash flow summarizes the amount of cash and cash equivalents entering and leaving a business. It measures how well a business managing its cash position, meaning how well it generates cash to pay its debt obligations and fund its operating expenses. All right, let's move on. Fourth question. Everest would like to know how much money was spent on operating expenses for their outdoor supply gear store this past month. Which statement should you look at to find this information? So how much money was spent on operating expenses, right? So money, again, it's relating to cash. So is it the balance sheet? Is it income statement? Is it statement of equity? Or is it statement of cash flows? So Everest would like to know how much money was spent on operating expenses for their outdoor supply gear store this past month. Is it the income statement or cash flow? Would like to know how much money was spent on operating expenses. How much? Okay, it could be, I'm not sure. It could be income statement, it could be cash flow, but let's look at the question. How much money was spent on, but the cash flow also would show you this, right? Because in the first portion of the cash flow is it shows you the cash flow from operating activities. No, that's not really what it is, right? Cash flow would tell you not just how much was spent, but how much cash was generated during the period. So you have your cash from your sales, collection of AR, payment of expenses, payment of payables. So it's not very specific as opposed to an income statement where one look at the income statement, you would know right away how much was spent on operations, right? So I think answer should be income statement. All right. It is income statement. Majority sa inyo income statement. So I guess it is income statement. I'm not sure. Could be wrong, but let's stick with the majority. And that's correct. The income statement shows a business's revenues and total expenses over a period of time. However, it does not show how much cash a business actually has at the present time. So how much cash should be from the balance sheet or the cash flow. Right. Next, Remy bought 10 computers from an online computer wholesaler for their company. Which financial statement will reflect the book value of these assets? So 10 computers, and how much is it going to show as the value? So it could only be the balance sheet, right? We're talking about the value of the asset. So it is the balance sheet, not the income statement, not the statement of equity, not even the cash flow. So let's hit that submit button. And we are correct. A business's balance sheet reports its assets, liabilities, and owner's equity on a particular date. The computers are business assets and therefore will be reflected there. Next question. Drew's electric business sold a piece of equipment this accounting period for cash. So electric business, it sold a piece of equipment for the accounting period in cash. You can expect the change in cash position resulting from this transaction to show up on? Is it A, the balance sheet, B, the income statement, or a statement of equity, or a statement of cash flows? So the impact on cash brought about by the sale of an asset. So it can only be in the cash flow statement. So ano ba to? Sale of equipment is not an operating activity, right? Because it's not part of the regular business activity. Could be in investing or financing. Maybe investing, right? Because financing is related to loans, right? So investing, right? Because when you buy equipment, you are investing in an equipment. So if you're also selling the equipment, then you are basically impacting you're actually technically doing an investing activity, right? So in the investment component of the cash flow. Let's see if we got it right. Correct. So the statement of cash flow summarizes the amount of cash and cash equivalents entering and leaving a business. It measures how well a business manages its cash position, meaning how well it generates cash to pay its debt obligations and funds its operating expenses. And fund its operating expenses. Right. Thank you guys for confirming. Next, second to the last question. The owner of a coffee shop invested $10,000 into their business this year. You should expect the accumulated amount of the investment in the business to be shown on. Is it the balance sheet? It could be. Income statement? Not really. Statement of equity. This is more specific. And statement of cash flows. So it could be either the balance sheet or the statement of equity, but equity is more specific because this is related to the owner's investment of $10,000. Right? So let's confirm if we got it right. And that's indeed correct. The statement of equity is used to show the change to the owner's equity in a company during the given reporting period. And finally, the last question. Taylor would like to know how much their bicycle shop made this past month. Which financial statement should you look into for this information? So this would talk about the financial performance, right? During the past month of the bicycle shop. So financial performance relates to the income statement. So it's not a balance sheet because again, balance sheet is more of the financial position. Income statement is a financial performance. Equity relates to owners drawing, retained earnings, contributions, and also cash flow relates to cash activities. So it's only income statement, and you all are also in agreement to that. Let's see if we can get 100% score. And that's indeed correct. The income statement shows a business's revenues and total expenses, including non-cash accounting over a period of time. However, it does not show how much cash a business has. It does not show how much cash a business has at the present time. All right. Quiz result is 100%. Good job, everybody. All right, so 732, let's see what's next. Conclusion. You are one step closer to being a bookkeeper. You now have a good understanding of the four main financial statements you will be preparing for your clients. As a bookkeeper, it is important to understand these statements because they will help you track the financial performance of the business you work with. This will allow you to guide your clients to make informed decisions about the future of their business. Right, so i-relate lang natin yan dito sa ating test drive. So you guys, if you look at the financial reports, financial statements, all you got to do is go to reports, right? And then you can do standard reports. And then the income statement, the balance sheet are all going to be here, including the cash flow and the statement of changes in equity, right? So all here would be your financial statement. So you have your balance sheet. There are balance sheet, more detailed information. You have your profit and loss. And then Let's see cash flow. Where do you see cash flow? So you have general ledger as a matter of fact, statement of cash flows. Let's see if this provides equity. So walang specific report for equity, but no worries because that would be part of the balance sheet anyway. So cash flows, if you're interested to know how that looks like, is like this, right? So ganing sinabi ni Alma kahapon, when you're doing cash flow, you'll also have to look into the previous year to look at the movement of the accounts, right? Because if you're doing that way, I think that's indirect method. Madugo yan, right? But the good news is you don't have to do that with QBO because QBO or any other accounting software does the report for you, right? So all you have to do in QuickBooks is just enter the transactions. And when you're entering the transactions, you just really have to make sure that you're entering it right. So make sure that the amounts are correct, the categorization are correct, the dates are correct, the vendors, the payees, the customer's name. So all the details have to be correct. Otherwise, the financial report that you will be producing out of QuickBooks would be also incorrect, right? Because again, when you're using a system, remember this, it's garbage in, garbage out, right? If you're inputting something wrong into the system will also generate reports that are also wrong, right? But again, good news is you have the reports taken care of for you by the system. And if ever you make a mistake, you can always make the correction, right? So this is a statement of cash flow for Craig's design and landscaping services from January 1 to September 14, right? So as you can see, that's the operating activities of the business. And this is the investing, meaning because he bought a truck for 13,000, and these are the financing activities relating to availing of a loan, 25,000, and there was an opening balance equity of 9,000. So if I'm gonna look at this report, it would show me that the operation of the business generated $1,800, right? So from the net income, the business made collection of about 1,602 payments to accounts payable, and during that same period, the business has paid a total. Sorry, not really. This was collections, right? No, this is not correct. How do I interpret this? Adjustments are reconciled. So this doesn't show, right? Because accounts receivable, if it's negative, that means this is likely an indirect cash flow calculation, right? So movement, right? Movement of AR. So possibly AR was higher last year versus this year. Right. Don't worry about it, guys. That's too technical. Just say at the end of the period from January 1 to September 14, the operating activities of the business generated this amount of money. And then because the business bought a truck that costed 13,000, that caused an outflow of cash, right? And then based on this, you may ask, how come the business was still operating very well when there was only, or how come the business was able to afford buying a truck when it only generated about 1,800 in cash during the period? How was it able to afford a truck? So that truck was actually most likely financed by availing of a loan, right? You see here, there's a loan of 25,000, and less the opening balance equity, the net cash of the business at the end of the period is 4,063, right? So how do you want to relate that to the other report? If you go to balance sheet, this amount, 4,063.52, should be your cash balance as of September, as an end of September. So if we go to balance sheet, so as of September 14, the cash balance is, why is it not matching? 4,063. Why do I have 2,000? That's the classic view. It's also the classic view here. All right, see here, 4,063.52. And then your cash flow is also 4,063.52. So if you only would like to simply see how much the cash, then you look at the balance sheet, right? But if you want to get the story of how the cash came about, or how the story behind this 4,063, then you would look at the cash flow to understand the cash activities during the period. You get what I'm saying? And there are various information that you can use this report from. So you can see in the balance sheet, there's a truck of 13,495. And again, you may ask, if you look at the financial statements, particularly the income statement. So we're just trying to relate each one, okay? Because as we have already learned, income or the financial statements have different usage, right? So they're used for different purposes and they show information differently. So if you look at the P&L for the year, and then let's use cash to be consistent. So you can see that the business actually generated a loss, right? 1,904.12. But there is a positive cash balance of 4,000 during the period. And you may wonder why? Why is it that there is a positive cash even if the business made a loss during the period, right? So if you're a typical businessman who do not necessarily know the financial statements, and if you look at your balance sheet, you may think that you're making some profit, right? Because you have a positive cash balance. But if in reality, you're actually generating losses, right? In fact, a loss of about $2,000 for the year. But how do you have a positive cash? Again, if you look at your cash flow, your cash was not coming from the operation of the business. It's mainly coming from the financing activities, because apparently you made a loan of 25,000 during the year. If you want to know what that is, it's on August 15, there was a notes payable. So what's the split on this accounts payable? I don't know why it's opening balance equity, but let's just say that the business made a loan during the period and that resulted to a positive cash at the end of the year. So there are occasions wherein even if the business is making losses, there is a positive cash position, right? Walang relationship yung profitability versus, or walang necessary direct relationship yung profitability with the cash position of the business. There could be, but it's not direct. Right. Everything's clear so far. Are you able to put this into context? How do you look at the financial report, and what are their usage, and how do they actually look like in the actual practice, which is in QBO? Everything is clear so far. It's good. Not too much information, not too overwhelming, or not too confusing. What do you guys think?
Clear po.
Are you good? Right. Thank you, guys. So that's it for this lesson. Let's submit this and see where it would lead us. See, we have completed this module, right? We have completed this module. Let's look at the content. So we have completed the preparation of financial statements. Now we should be doing the summary. All right, so summary activity, bookkeeping basics. Let's start the module. So you're off to a great start. Bookkeeping basics laid a solid foundation and introduced you to accounting definitions, principles, and concepts. To help the information stick, let's walk through a practical scenario that will demonstrate the double entry method and the accounting cycle in action. Estimated time is 30 minutes. All right, so let's get started. Bookkeeping basic summary. Congratulations, you're coming to the end of part 1, bookkeeping basics. In this course, you learn about the bookkeeping's role, responsibilities, and the fundamentals of bookkeeping. 3 important takeaways from this section are the following. The fundamental concepts of the accounting cycle. So by now, it's clear with you guys, right? The accounting cycle and what are those? Foundational principles of the double entry accounting method. So you now understand that in every entry there's at least 2 accounts that's impacted, right? And that also you have it in your head already clear the accounting equation, the asset that's equal to liabilities and equity. And then the core accounting principles, the principle of conservatism, materiality, going concern, separate entity, all those entity or those principles should already be, at least make sense to you. May not be too clear, but at least they make sense to you by now. So in the activities that come next, you get a chance to use your newly acquired knowledge in these concepts by facing glossary challenges and dealing with realistic situations. So let's skip the glossary. You can do it on your own. So the following documents may also come in handy. So the checklist for accounting cycle, you can also download it, the principles and assumptions. So just download it on your own, okay? So now the glossary challenge. Test your knowledge. Let's review some of the important terms we have covered so far. Complete the following activities. Refer to the glossary if needed. Question number 1. Anything a business owns, a value or a resource of value that has the potential to be transformed into cash. Without looking at the choices, can you guys make a guess or an answer? An educated answer. So you guys are saying asset. Let's see if asset is on the list, right? So the choices are balance sheet, asset, statement of cash flows, or chart of accounts. Everybody answered asset. Let's check that out. That's correct. So that's correct. Let's move on to the next. Select the term that matches the definition. The list of all the accounts and sub-accounts used to categorize transactions. Ang bilis ni Gina, chart of accounts. So chart of accounts or COA, that is correct. Let's go with the next. The report covering the sources and uses of cash by a business. What is this? It's a report, so it refers to the financial statement. So cash flow, statement of cash flow. Let's see if that is in the choices. So it is in the choices, statement of cash flows. And that is correct. Let's go with the next. The financial statement that reports a business's assets, liabilities, and equity at a specific point in time. BS, bullshit. It's a balance sheet, right? So everybody is correct. Balance sheet. Let's go with the next. Oh, great work. You have completed the activity. So when Craig, the owner of a landscaping business, buys equipment, the purchase appears as a debit on his business balance sheet. What does this mean? So what does it mean? The purchase appears on the debit. So choices are: a debit is decrease in asset or expenses or an increase in liabilities, owner's equity, or revenue. So the second part could be a true, but the first one is not correct, right? A debit is decrease in asset. So a debit will be an increase in asset. Next, a debit is an increase in asset or expenses or a decrease in liabilities, owner's equity, or revenue. This is also incorrect, right? Or sorry, a decrease. Oh, so this sounds correct. B is sounds correct. But let's see choice number 3. A debit is an owner's stake in the company, how much she has invested or withdrawn. This is an incorrect statement. So the correct statement should be the second one. So a debit is an increase in an asset and a decrease in liabilities and equity or revenue. Let's submit, and that is correct. When Craig sells mulch, the sales revenue appears as credit on his business's book. What does this mean? So when Craig sells mulch, the sales revenue appears as a credit. So the sales revenue has a credit balance or has credit as the normal balance. So when you do credit a sales revenue, you are basically what? So a credit is a decrease in assets or expenses or an increase in liabilities, owners, equity, or revenue. This seems to be the correct answer, but let's check the other two. A credit is an increase in assets, which is incorrect. A credit is a decrease in asset or a decrease in liability. So this is also incorrect. A credit is an owner's stake in the company, how much he has invested or withdrawn. It could be a credit is an owner's stake, but withdrawal is a debit side, right? So the answer is letter A. Or let's check. And that's right. The sales revenue of mulch increases revenue, resulting in credits to revenue. A credit is a decrease in assets or expenses or an increase in liabilities, owner's equity, or revenue. Next, Craig considers the investment in the business he owns as equity. What does he mean? Equity is a decrease in assets or expenses or an increase in liabilities, owner's equity, or revenue. So it's not right? Equity should be an increase in asset. Next, equity is an increase in assets or expenses, or a decrease in liabilities, owner's equity, or revenue. This is also incorrect. Let's see the third one. Equity is an owner's stake in the company, how much the owner has invested into the business or withdrawn from the business over time. So this appears to be the correct answer. And everybody is also in agreement. Let's hit the submit button. That's right. Owner's equity is the owner's stake in the company, the owner's investment and withdrawal since the business was founded. Right. Let's look at a few more key terms we've learned in part 1. Question number 1, income earned through business, gross proceeds, or sales. What is this, guys? What's your guess? It's revenue. Revenue. Let's see if revenue is in the choices. So expenses, income statement, liability, and revenue. So let's choose revenue. And that is correct. So revenue refers to the income earned through business, gross proceeds, or sales. Let's hit next. Select the cost associated with the action of running a business. Sabilis, expenses. And expenses is on the list. Let's try that. And that is correct. Let's go with the next. So guys, even if you're not typing, make an educated guess, okay? So you can confirm if your guess is correct. Next, money a business owes to others. Owes meaning utang, right? So it is a liability. All right, that's correct. Next, the report that shows a business's revenues and expenses during a particular period. It is the income statement. And that's correct. Great work. You have completed this activity. Let's go with the next summary activity. In the two scenarios that follow, you make entries and answer questions about transactions made by the owner of a landscaping business. Scenario 1, the purchasing power. Right, the scene. When one of your clients reaches out, they rely on your knowledge to help them understand difficult questions they might struggle with on their own. A standard scenario might involve what we might call purchasing power. Craig calls in with a question. Craig, the owner of a landscaping business, purchased $500 worth of sprinklers for his inventory. He charged the expense to the company credit card. I'm planning ahead for the busy spring season when we also need to purchase fertilizer. How will this recent sprinkler purchase affect my ability to buy additional supplies? So let's help Craig out. Let's see how Craig's purchase impacts his financial statements and cash flow, so he can make an informed decision on how much fertilizer he can also purchase. So you are able to follow the scenario, guys. So si Craig daw, bumili ng 500 worth of sprinklers. But he's also thinking of buying fertilizer. Now he's thinking, basically, can he afford to buy fertilizer, right? Does he have the cash for it, right? That's basically what the scenario is being said, right? So let's see. Let's try it out. First, we need to record the transaction in the transaction journal. Let's enter the information to show that Craig bought $500 worth of sprinklers for his inventory using the company credit card. Use the drop-down menus to update the appropriate cells in the tables. When you are finished, select Submit. So let's record the transaction. Sprinkler supplier, that's the description. And the accounts payable to the credit card. So nangutang tayo, basically we're increasing the accounts payable, right? So accounts payable is a liability. The normal balance for a liability account is credit, correct? So we're going to credit the amount, which is 500. Therefore, debit is not applicable. Inventory is an asset. And again, if you're debiting an asset, meaning you're increasing the asset. So nag-purchase siya ng sprinkler, therefore nag-increase ang kanyang asset, right? So there should be a debit to the asset account for $500. Credit should be not applicable. And you guys agree with this, right? This is correct? All right. Thank you, Jesu. And that is indeed correct. Great work. So other than the transaction journal, what is another place that we can view the individual transaction that Craig has made? So yung purchase ng equipment, or sorry, purchase ng sprinkler, where would we see that? So is it on the statement of cash flows? Is it the income statement? Or is it on the general ledger? So other than the transaction journal, what is another place that we can view the individual transactions that Craig has made? So take note, individual, okay? Ang cash flow is a report. It doesn't show the individual transaction. Pag sinabing cash, isa lang yung account ng cash, right? Isa lang yung amount doon. So that's the income statement. Pag sinabing general ledger, you will see the transactions underneath that account, including the running total, right? Or the running balance. So the correct answer should be general ledger. So breakdown of all the transactions. Let's see if we are correct. And we are right. Both the general ledger and the transaction journal list out individual transactions. Let's hit continue. Craig's general ledger, tracking our transaction in the general ledger. To help Craig understand the impact of his purchase, let's take a look at the general ledger. So explore the general ledger, open the attachment, select the spreadsheet to download the file. So let's download this so it can make sense. Let's see, where did that go? Right, so let's open this up. So this is how the general ledger looks like. So again, breakdown of the transaction. So this is the this is an account for, this is the journal, landscaping journal. This is expense. So this is a transaction for the year or for the period. Right? So these are journal transaction. These are not ledger. Right? Where is yeah. So how many credit card purchases were made during this period? So how many credit card purchases were made during this period? Let's see. Ito isa. So what we can do here is we can do filtering, right? Data. Click filter and then select credit card. So isa lang, right? It's only the purchase related to the rain sprinkler with the amount of 500. Kung may nakita tayo ditong ibang transaction, then that would count as the answer. So in this case, there's only one. Right? So only one. We know that for sure because we've just seen the Excel file or the general ledger. Correct. So there's one credit card transaction in the sample general ledger during this period on 12/03 for the purchase of sprinkler heads. Now let's go to the balance sheet of Craig. Tracking our transaction or the balance sheet, let's now look at the balance sheet. Which section will the credit card transaction be shown on the balance sheet? Is it asset, liability, or equity? So credit card, it's utang, right? So it should only be in the total liabilities, right? And that is correct. Credit card purchases are considered outstanding debts and recorded as liabilities. So they will appear in the liability section on the balance sheet. Let's move on. Next, there's an activity using an excerpt from the balance sheet. The table displays the total amounts for assets, liabilities, and equity from the complete balance sheet. To explore the full balance sheet, open the attachment by selecting the link. Use the drop-down menus to update the appropriate cells in the tables to fill in the missing information from the balance sheet. When you're finished, select Submit. So to explore the balance sheet, open the attachment. Select the download. Okay. Let's open up that file. All right, so this is a balance sheet. Medyo maraming accounts. And then, so total assets, total liabilities, and equity. So in here, if total liabilities and equity is 46,684, then that should also be our total assets, correct? So alam na natin, total assets should be 46,684. But in this case, we don't know what composes liabilities and equity, right? So this is where we look at our balance sheet. So we look at for the total liabilities is 19,909.05 and total equity is 26,000. Right? So we'll fill that out. 19,000 and this one is 26,000. Correct? This is based on this section here, the equity, and then this section here, total liabilities. Right? So that's our answer there. Hit submit. Nice. Great work. Now the cash flows. So tracking our transaction, statement of cash flow. Next, let's look at how the purchase made with a credit card impacts the statement of cash flows. What follows is an excerpt from the statement of cash flows. All right, let's open that cash flow statement. So this is how it looks like, right? So operating activity, starting off with the income, adjustments of the accounts. So you have net increase, and then what the cash was in the beginning of the year. You have the cash at the end of the year. So see here, 21,000 was provided by the operation, 32 from investing, and 28 from financing. So it looks like there was so much purchase of assets from investments, and then there could also be payment of loans, more than the loan availed during the year because there's negative, right? So if you look at it, for the period, negative yung cash niya, but because there was a beginning balance of 56, so at the end of the year, positive pa din siya, right? But in this case, hindi naman nagsinisabing because negative yung cash period mo, it doesn't necessarily mean that it was a loss, right? Just because there was a decrease in cash doesn't mean that it's going to be a loss. What you need to look into would be the income statement, right? Not the cash flow statement. It would not tell you. The cash flow statement will not tell you that just because there was a decrease in the cash, that there was a loss during the period. It could be something else. Again, in this case, it could be because there were payments in the purchase of assets. There could also be payment of loans, right? That's why there was a decrease in cash during that period. Make sense so far? So question, which section includes the account for the credit card purchases for the period? Again, which section includes the account for the credit card purchases for the period? Is it net cash provided by investing activities? Is it net cash provided by operating activities? Or is it net cash provided by financing activities? So yung binili niya dito is inventory, di ba? So yung sprinkler, it's related to the operation, right? Kung ang credit card ay binili niya to purchase equipment, then that equipment is related to investing, right? But in this case, it has something to do with the normal operating activity of the business. Therefore, the answer is B. All right. But let's confirm our answer. And that is correct. Since the purchase with a credit card is part of the business's regular operations, it falls under net cash provided by operating activities. Right. Next is we're going to do client consultation. So after tracking the purchase through Craig's books and several financial statements, you reach out to inform him of your findings. So according to you, based on your statement of cash flows, you have 17,040 available in your cash accounts, right? So this is where you can provide value to your customer, to your client. Remember, or one time last week, I shared with you guys a story about me asking few of my staff if we have enough cash to pay off the salary for that week, but they cannot show me because they have not prepared a financial statement yet, right? And so this is similar scenario. The owner is asking you, the bookkeeper, if he has enough cash to buy more inventory for the store. And you answered in the positive because according to the cash flow, there is still an available funds of 17,000. Now, Craig's follow-up question. That sounds great. I'll be able to buy what I need before or without taking out another line of credit. Right? So December is typically a slow month. Can you tell me how much service revenue I've earned during the month? So again, this is really something that may happen in real life, guys. This is why you are doing your work and timely recording your transactions so that you're able to provide timely answers to your business client, right? Or your bookkeeping client. So scenario 2, service revenue. So Craig's team completed several jobs during the month. Let's begin by recording one of those transactions in a journal entry. Try it out. Craig's landscaping business mowed Harry's lawn and billed him $75 plus $6.84 in taxes for a total of $81.84. Harry has yet to pay the invoice. So inutang muna ni Harry yung $84.84. This means there was an income, but there was no cash because there was an accounts receivable. Use the drop-down menus to update the appropriate cells in the tables to record the transaction for mowing Harry's lawn. When you are finished, select Submit. So these are the transactions. And again, this is an example of a compound entry where you have more than two accounts involved. So accounts receivable is an asset. And that is the total, the amount of $81.84, right? And again, asset has a normal balance of the debit. You're increasing the debit, you're increasing the asset, so you're debiting it, right? Debit to $81.84. Service revenue, this is an income account. So if you're increasing an income account, you are going to be crediting it, correct? Again, because the normal balance for a revenue account is credit. So how much was the revenue? $75, right? And then sales tax is an expense, right? So an expense, its normal balance is credit. No. In this case, you may wanna, I don't want to explain it because it may be too much to digest, but sales tax in this case is a liability because you're going to collect the sales tax on behalf of the government, right? So you will be remitting this to the government. This is similar to a VAT, right? VAT in the Philippines. When you purchase something, or when you sell something, there's is that output VAT. So the output VAT is technically a liability because you'll be required to remit that to the taxing agency of the government. So sales tax here in this case is not an expense but a liability. So that's $6.84. Make sense? So ang sale mo lang talaga is 75, but because there's a sales tax of $6.84, therefore you will be collecting to the customer a total of $81.84. Okay? And again, sales tax is not an income, it's not an expense. In this case, this is a liability because you are just collecting it on behalf of the government. All right, so let's hit submit. Let's check if we have the, all right, sorry. We need to say NA here, NA here, and another NA here. And let's hit submit. All right, great work. All right, nakailang great work na tayo today. Next is a balance sheet. So Craig sends an invoice to Harry. Now let's find where the invoice for this service is shown on the balance sheet. Keep in mind that Harry hasn't paid the bill yet, so the income is only listed in accounts receivable. Explore the full balance sheet and open the attachment. Right, so which type of account is accounts receivable? So which type of account now? Is it asset, liability, equity? We know that it is an asset, right? So let's hit submit, and that is correct. Now, income statement. Tracking our transaction. Finally, let's check the income from service revenue for the period by reviewing the income statement, which is also known as the P&L statement. Right, so after looking at the income statement, which of the following accurately describes the service revenue for the period? So let's open that service revenue, or so the income statement, and let's base our answer from this statement. So service revenue was 12,000, right? And then there was sales of product 1,000, total 13,542. And the question is, which of the following, all right, the question is, after looking at the income statement, which of the following accurately describes the service revenue for the period? So sales from service revenue total 12,522.64. Sales from the service revenue total $13,032.64. Or sales from the service revenue total 7,838.55. So it's very clear that it is 12,522.64. So our answer should be letter A. Right, so great job. The sales for the service revenue were 12,000. The other kasi is sale of product. Great work. Craig has all his questions answered. You are on your way to being a great bookkeeper. Conclusion. You're one step closer to being a bookkeeper. By completing these glossary challenges and working through the scenarios, You reviewed more of the methods, principles, definitions, and concepts used by a bookkeeper on a daily basis. Now you understand the significance of debits and credits in double entry bookkeeping, the importance of assets, liabilities, and equity in the accounting equation, and how transactions affect the accounting equation. Additionally, you've learned about some core accounting principles that form the foundation of accounting. Right. Everything good? Everyone's good so far? Right. Okay pa naman tayo? Okay, job. So let's submit. You've completed this module, right? I think we're down to the very last one. Oh, practice exam na tayo, right? And today we will be able to complete the first module, which is the bookkeeping basics. So 20 questions lang naman to. All right, 20 questions, guys. Tulungan tayo. Let's aim for 100%, okay? So optional practice exam. This module will prepare you for the final badge, right? Final badge exam and test your knowledge of the content covered in the Intuit Academy exam, bookkeeping basics. You will be given 20 questions, right? 20 questions lang to. Kaya natin to. Let's begin. All right, medyo maliit. Kita ba? Okay naman. And I'm just gonna read it aloud. What is a debit in accounting? Again, what is a debit in accounting? It is a record of money paid by a customer or a supplier. This is not correct. A decrease in an asset or an increase in a liability or equity. This is also incorrect. A record of money owed by a customer or a supplier. No, this is a liability. So a debit is an increase in an asset or a decrease in a liability or equity. So this appears to be the correct answer, right? So debit, every time you debit, you're increasing an asset and you're decreasing a liability or equity, right? Ito papasok yung normal balances natin. And let's hit submit. Correct. Next, a U.S. corporation operating in several countries prepares its financial statements in US dollars using the monetary unit assumption accounting principle. What does this mean? Again, a U.S. corporation operating in several countries prepares its financial statements in US dollars using the monetary unit assumption accounting principle. What does this mean? So it talks about the principles, guys. Pang ilang days pa natin yun. This was part of the earlier days in our sessions. So the choices are, it means that a company records all its transactions in local currency of each country and then converts them to US dollars at the end of the accounting period. Or it means that the company records all its transactions in US dollars and adjusts them for changes in exchange rates over time. It means that a company records all its transactions in US dollars regardless of the currency used in each country. Or finally, it means that the company records all its transactions in US dollars and does not account for inflation or deflation in any country. So medyo nakakalito, no? So anong principle nga ito? Something to do with currency. Na isang currency lang, you don't account for inflation, you don't account for revaluation, you don't account for the exchange rate. So monetary principle. Thank you, Jesu. Right? So our answer here is letter D. It means that the company records all its transactions in US dollars and does not account for inflation or deflation in any country. Lahat by D. All right, D. Let's hit submit. Correct. So 2 out of 20. Next, a small business purchases a new machine for $10,000 by paying $2,000 in cash and borrowing the remaining $8,000 from a bank. How does this transaction affect the accounting equation? So my asset na 10,000, may asset, nabawasan din yun yung asset ng 2,000, nag-increase naman yung liability ng 8,000, correct? So let's see. Asset increased by 2,000 and liabilities increased by 8,000. This is incorrect, right? Because the asset increased by 10,000. Asset increased by 8,000 and liabilities increased by 8,000. So bakit 8,000 lang? Kasi nag-increase ang 10,000, nabawasan naman ng 2,000, correct? Kasi asset yung machine na dinebit, asset naman yung cash na credit. So 10,000 minus 2,000, net impact niyan sa asset is only 8,000. So this appears to be the correct statement, but let's look for the other choices. Assets decreased by 2,000 and liabilities increased by 8,000. This is not correct because the asset, although it decreased by 2,000, nag-increase siya ng 10,000. So the net impact should be 8,000. Next is assets increased by 10,000 and shareholders' equity increases by 8,000. So this is also incorrect. Walang kinalaman ng equity because the only accounts involved are assets and liabilities. Therefore, the answer should be letter B. Right? And everyone is in agreement. Letter B. May nalito ba? Pakalain nyo 10,000 yung asset ha? Hindi. Then nag-increase yung 10,000 yung asset but nabawasan naman siya ng 2,000 because ang cash is asset and dapat credit mo naman siya. Right? So, iba na labas sa akin. What do you mean, Joseph? It's not the same question. Yeah, maybe because hindi siya in order. Right? Naka-shuffle yung questions, right? But this should be the answer, right? So if we're just gonna record that transaction in here, hindi, maliit lang yung screen ko kasi, wag na lang. Basta yun, yung net impact mo sa asset was 8,000, okay? Nag-gets naman to, hindi naman nalito yung iba kung bakit 8,000 lang. Again, nag-increase ng 10,000 but nabawasan naman ng 2,000. So net effect niya is 8,000. At yung liability, nag-increase ng 8,000 kasi yun yung utang. Make sense? Let's hit that submit button. And that's correct. So the purchase of the machine increases the company's assets by 10,000 as it acquires a new valuable resource. The payment of cash decreased the company's assets by 2,000 as it reduces its liquid assets. The borrowing of money increases the company's liabilities by 8,000 as it increases a new obligation to repay the debt. Therefore, the net effect on both sides of the accounting equation is an increase of 8,000. Again, 10,000 minus 2,000, keeping the equation balanced, right? Make sense? Again, balikan natin yung asset equals liabilities plus equity na equation. All right, let's continue. Next question. What is the purpose of the step 6 of the accounting cycle? Ano yung sixth step? Or step 6 is a financial statements, right? So, ano dang purpose nun? Select the best response and then submit. So, best response. Ito yung best. Medyo nakakaba yung best eh. So, first choice is to close the temporary accounts and transfer their balances to the permanent accounts. This is not the correct answer. This is the pag-transfer nung P&L accounts to the equity account, which I don't want to explain it. Baka kasi maguluhan kayo. But this is definitely not the answer. To communicate or publish the financial performance and position of the business to external users? Not necessarily, because maraming users ng financial statements, but the primary user is yung internal users, yung owner. Next, to verify the accuracy and completeness of the financial records of the business? I'm not sure. Kasi kung mali yung ginawa mong recording, mali man din yung financial records, right? Let's see. To update and correct financial transactions of the business to reflect the current situation. So I think the correct answer here is that letter D, to update and correct the financial transactions of the business to reflect the current situation? Yeah, I'm leaning towards this because pwede naman tong external user. This is actually a correct statement, but it may not necessarily be the best statement, right? So to communicate or publish a financial performance and position of the business to external users. This is correct, right? But between the two, update and correct the financial transactions of the business to reflect the current situation. So, ito na yung you're putting all together the transactions so that you would know what the current situation is of the business, meaning the performance and the position. So, you guys are answering B, some are D, ano ba? I think I'm also gonna go with D, right? Option 4 is best answer. Sige, let's try letter D. Incorrect. Step 6 of the accounting cycle is to prepare the financial statement, which are how a business communicates or publishes its financial performance and position. These statements provide the useful information to external users, such as investors, creditors, customers, suppliers, regulators, and tax authorities. So, best para kay QuickBooks ang option number B. Okay. Again, best kasi subjective, di ba? So, sige lang. It's okay, guys. At least we know. At least you guys know. Okay. But you guys know, right? Na-cover naman natin kung ano yung mga, sino-sino yung mga users ng financial statements. Like earlier, I showed you yung financial statements ng BDO, ng BPI. You can actually see that in the investor relations. And the reason for that is because maraming gumagamit ng financial statements. It's not just the owners ng BDO, but also the government, SEC, for example. The investing public, tayo yun, right? If you want to invest in BDO, we want to know if they're making money or not, right? So, yeah, Jorham is generating, B is generating financial statement, D is preparing the adjusting entries. Tama ba? Yeah, I think I'm gonna agree with Jorham. Right. So, yeah, those are the stakeholders. At least we know, right? It's okay to make mistakes. That's fine. In this community, again, pwede tayong maging tanga, pwede tayong maging stupid, pwede tayong magkamali. Nobody is perfect. Right. So next, which of the following events would most likely cause an auditor to issue a negative going concern opinion for a company? Grabe naman tong question na to. So which of the following events would most likely cause an auditor to issue a negative going concern opinion for a company? May example tayo dito, 'di ba? Yung Vista Land nga, 'di ba? Yung Villar Land pala. Hindi nag-issue yung Isla Lipana, which their auditor ng opinion until they were able to do the independent appraisers report, right? So, ano yung mga scenario that could cause the auditor to issue a negative going concern opinion? Going concern is if the business is going to be operating for an unforeseeable feature of time, right? Yun yung going concern na hindi nakikita ng auditor na ay, mababankrupt na tong business na to hanggang ngayong taon na lang to. You know what I mean? So, what would be the scenario that would cause the auditor to think na palugi na yung business, right? So option number 1, the company has low inventory turnover ratio and is facing usefulness issues. Low inventory turnover. I don't know. Let's look at the second option. The company has a low profit margin ratio and is facing efficiency issues. Is it that the company has a high debt to equity ratio and is facing liquidity problems? It could be, meaning hindi na sila nakakapagbayad ng utang. Mas malaki yung utang nila kaysa equity. Or it could be that a company has a high return on equity ratio and is facing competition issues. Parang normal naman itong nangyayari sa isang business, di ba? May competition naman talaga. So, pag sinabing liquidity, yun yung wala ka ng pambayad masyado ng utang, di ba? You're facing, kasi nga mas malaki yung utang mo versus doon sa ownership ng owner doon sa business. So kapag hindi ka na nakapagbayad ng utang, most likely you will be facing bankruptcy. Right? Ito namang usefulness issues, efficiency issues, more of internal issues naman to, ano? So, is everybody in agreement? So, let us see. Guys, hindi pala madali yung mga questions sa QBO, ha? Kaya magandang ginagawa natin actually para mas maintindihan nyo, right? Hindi yung, you know, you can take, anybody can take the QBO exam, and you can actually pass it if you just do trial and error. But if you do it, walang kwenta yung certification, di ba? Kasi hindi mo naman talaga naintindihan yung principles behind it. So, anong answer natin dito? C. Yes, mahirap. But it's okay. So C, majority ba dito C? Answer ko din is letter C eh. Kasi again, para sa akin, itong usefulness issue sa inventory turnover, profit margin, may issue tong profit margin kasi kung sustained low profit margin, it could lead to issues nga on profitability. But pwede namang low profit ka for a period of time pero marami ka pang pera kasi malaki yung ininvest ng owner. So pwede pa. Like in the start of the business, usually first 3 years maglo-loss talaga yung business, di ba? But if the owner has a capacity to reinvest, then the business can go on for a long time. But yung nakikita mo na medyo wala nang pambayad si owner, wala nang hindi na kayang mag-sustain ng contribution, then that could be an issue, right? Which could possibly lead to bankruptcy nga. So I guess my answer is also C. Majority naman C. All right, so let's submit. Correct. So a high debt to equity ratio. Pag-aralan natin tong debt to equity ratio as we go along ha. Kaya nga meron tayong working file ng financial natin because I'm also gonna present to you guys how to do basic financial analysis, right? Which yung mga debt to equity ratio, that's a basic tool to do financial analysis, right? Kaya medyo complex talaga itong question na to kasi hindi pa tayo umabot doon. Okay to sa mga medyo may accounting background na, but for those wala pa, the debt to equity ratio could be very overwhelming. But again, guys, like I always say, it's okay lang yan. It will make sense as we go along. So let's continue. Next, what is the second step in the accounting cycle? Ito, madali na lang to. Right, second step is the recording and posting of journal entries, right? Kasi yung preparation of financial statements is the sixth. Making the adjusting entries would be the fourth. And calculating trial balances is either 3 or 5th, right? So madali na lang to. Kahit wala kang background, maiintindihan mo to. So recording of and posting of journal entries is the second step. And that is correct. So recording and posting journal entries is the second step in the accounting cycle as it involves documenting the financial transactions of a business in chronological order, meaning according to the date. A journal entry consists of a debit and a credit entry that reflect the double entry accounting system. A journal entry shows the accounts and amounts that are affected by a transaction. The other steps are performed after recording journal entries. All right, let's continue. Next, Mary is a bookkeeper for a small manufacturing company. She is preparing the financial statements for the year end and has annotated the following information. The manufacturing company has a lawsuit pending against it by a former employee who claims wrongful termination. The lawsuit was filed in November and the outcome is uncertain. The company's lawyer estimates that the potential liability could range from $10,000 to $50,000. This is an example of what accounting principle? So is it a monetary unit assumption? Hindi, kasi ito yung US dollar, yung reporting kung nasa US, Philippine peso kung nasa Philippines, right? Full disclosure principle. I don't know. Materiality principle, hindi rin. Consistency principle, hindi rin. Kasi consistency is same recording per period or same classification per period. Materiality is something to do with the amount. So I was initially thinking prudence, right? Or conservatism, but not in the choices, right? So I think the closest one is full disclosure, meaning in the financial statements, i-disclose siya na may pending lawsuit yung company, right? Which could possibly lead to a liability of 10,000 to 50,000 para yung reader ng financial statements ay aware, right? So I think letter B is the correct answer. So sama si Arnold, it could be disclosed in the notes to the financial statements. Right? Kasi kung hindi mo to i-disclose, possible na may misrepresentation. 'Di ba? So dapat full disclosure ka sa user ng financial statements. So I think this is correct. I think everybody is also in agreement. That is correct. So this is an example of a full disclosure principle. A company must show all the important information in its financial statements. This makes the financial statements more transparent and useful. The important information can be things like accounting policies, assumptions, estimates, contingencies, or events. The information can be shown in the main body of the financial statements or in the notes. The lawsuit is a contingency that may result in a future loss or gain depending on its outcome. It is usually disclosed in the notes along with the other contingencies that describe their nature, amount, and probability. So once you have that time, again, look at any publicly listed company na gusto nyo mag-invest kayo or you're currently invested, look at their financial statements. There should be a section that shows notes to FS, right? That's is where the disclosure is or the disclosure are stated. Okay, let's continue. Match the definition with the correct accounting principle. Use a drop down to select the correct accounting principle for each definition and then select Submit. First one, a company must record its assets and revenues at the lowest possible value and its liabilities and expenses at the highest possible value. Let us check what the choices are. It's reliability, consistency, or conservatism. So ito yung na-mention ko earlier, conservatism, right? So or in other term, it's also prudence, right? Next, a company should use the same methods to record and report its transactions and events every year. So ito yung pag categorize ang transaction, the same vendor should be categorized for the same type of expense every single period, right? And that is called consistency, right? Next, a company must have proof of what it records in its financial statements. So kung nag-record ka ng asset dyan, dapat may proof of ownership ka ng asset, right? And that is a principle of reliability, meaning hindi ka gumagawa ng milagro doon sa financial statements. The assets that you record can actually be, pag sa audit dito, di ba, yun yung nag-actual account kayo ng inventory, nag-actual check kayo ng fixed assets, check against a fixed asset register, diba? So with that, i-establish yung reliability ng financial statement. All right, so I think we're good with this. First is conservatism, second is consistency, and the third is reliability assumption. Right? Walang object. Otherwise, submit natin. Correct. So the reliability assumption means that a company must have proof of what it records in its financial statements. The conservatism assumption means that a company must record its assets and revenues at the lowest possible value and its liabilities and expenses at the highest possible value. And finally, the consistency principle means that a company should use the same methods to record and report its transactions and events every year. For example, depreciation. Kung ang depreciation ay straight line, dapat straight line na yan all throughout, di ba? Hindi pwedeng straight line one year, modified naman the following year, right? So that's consistency. Let's continue. Which statements are true about the balance sheet? Select all that apply and then select submit, right? Limang guys, si Villar pala hindi concerned. Oo nga eh. Ba, diba? Si Villar pa naman ay CPA. So parang ano ba yan? Diba? Or ewan ko anong pinag-iisip ng accountant nila. Diba? Hindi conservative yung accountant. Kaloka. Anyway. Parang hindi nag-aral sa QuickBooks Academy. Anyway, which statements are true about the balance sheet? First, the balance sheet displays what the business owns and what the business owes as of a single day. As of a given day or as of a single day. Pwede ba to? I think this can work, right? Submit, select all that apply the way. But let's read everything. The balance sheet is used to track all the assets, liabilities, and equity of a business. Track ba? All assets? I'm not sure. I'm not convinced. The balance sheet shows all of the income or money generated for a particular period of time. So this is definitely not the correct answer. The balance sheet should be monitored on a regular basis since it's integral to maintaining the health of your business. This sounds to be correct. Next, the balance sheet is a financial statement that reports a company's assets, liabilities, and equity at a specific point in time. So this appears to be correct. So let's see. So definitely this is sure to be correct. Should be monitored on a regular basis and it's integral to maintaining the health of the business. This seems to be correct too. On a regular basis, meaning timely, monthly, quarterly. Maybe everyone says D is okay. Let's see. B, D, E. Okay. The balance sheet shows all income. That's incorrect already. Balance sheet used to track all assets. I'm confused about B. Sa balance sheet ba natatrack yung assets? Hindi naman. Liabilities hindi rin. Iba eh. Like yung sa subsidiary ledger to, di ba? Like yung liabilities, nakikita mo yung liabilities per creditor. But you don't see that on the face of a balance sheet. Right? Kasi BS nga, parang tama si Arnold. I agree with Arnold, na BS is summary, hindi siya yung detailed. So, hindi mo natatrack doon yung assets, yung liabilities, and more so, maybe the equity, but not the liabilities. Right? Wording is not clear. I agree. So, I'm not sure. I think B is not a correct answer. So, C, B, I think it's not a correct answer. Again, because on the balance sheet, summary na yan eh. You don't see, you are not able to track assets, liabilities, and equity. This will be covered in the subsequent lesson ng course natin, yung tracking ng asset, liabilities, and equity. Because nga may mga tinatawag tayong subsidiary ledger, right? So, I don't think this is the correct answer. I don't think this is a correct answer. But let's look at A. The balance sheet displays what the business owns, which is correct, right? The balance sheet displays what the business owns, yun yung asset. And what the business owes, that's what yung utang niya. As of a single day, yun lang yung problem ko. Single day. Hindi nga klaro yung yung word. Single day. Whereas ito naman, specific point in time. Kasi 'di ba yung balance sheet, ang wording nung balance sheet of ABC company as of, right? As of a given date. Pero yung as of a single day, it is a no. So, anong answer natin? So Ludina says D and E, D and E, A, D, E, B, D, E, A, D, E. So dito matitense yung ano natin. So, okay, si Evelyn is DE. So, DE din si Liza. BDE si Aya. I don't agree with B kasi talaga. I don't think B is correct. John Lloyd, DE. A is correct, sabi ni Gina. Okay na yan, DE. BDE. Okay na tayo sa DE? Huwag ma-offend yung iba, ha? Ako din kasi DE eh. Bahala na magkamali tayo, di ba? Okay naman magkamali, right? Huwag natin masyadong seryosohin. Baka yung iba hindi makatulog. Kapit malala. Right? As of a given day lang sa A eh. Oo nga eh. Hindi talaga makatulog. Sige, DE ha? Walang sisihan, DE. Or pwede niyo akong sisihin kasi ako naman nagda-drive ng answer. Pero ako din, ito din talaga yung answer ko eh. Bahala na, okay naman magkamali. Right? Malalaman natin ang sagot. Sige. Let's submit. Kinakabahan ako eh. Incorrect. Okay nga. Let's check why we're incorrect. The balance sheet does not show all of the income or money generated for a particular time period. The financial document that shows all of the income or money generated for a particular time period is the income statement. All the other statements are true. Shit. Sorry for the word. So tama yung una. Tama din yung B na nagtatrack ng asset. Hmm? So yung A, mali tayo, pero we were 50-50 there eh. Pero yung B, for it to be correct, I'm not sure about the B talaga. 'Di ba? Like, on the face of a balance sheet, hindi mo natatrack yung asset kasi. Kahit nga yung liability eh. Kasi nga total lang siya. Anyway, B is for details. O nga eh. So, ang mali lang, according to this, is yung letter C. But yung A, B, D, and E are correct. Oh, tama, Jesu. Yung sabi dito, yung A, B, D, and E are correct. 'Di ba? Be careful, guys, kasi hindi ganun kadali ang QBO na exam, right? Move on tayo. Okay lang yan. Retry daw, Chris. Right? I don't agree with into. O nga, nakaka-tricky din siya eh. Very, very tricky. Meron kasing question talaga na subjective, di ba? May question na objective din. Yung objective talaga, yung like yung numbers. Yung numbers, hindi mo pwedeng i-ano yan eh. Pero yung mga something to do with opinion, based yan sa perspective nung nagtatanong, right? But anyway, but in real life, may mga ganyan kasi talaga na subjective na question. Kaya, go na lang tayo. Kung mali, di mali. Matuto na lang tayo sa pag-retry, sabi nga ni Alma. Tapos sa wordings din, di ba? Move on na tayo, sabi ni Emma T. Right. It's so possible to prepare BS daily. Yun nga eh, parang, talaga ba? Magde-daily BS ka. Parang, I don't know. It's not practical. Next, Emily, a bookkeeper for a small business, is reviewing the. Bakit may lumalabas na mga ano to? Ano ba yan? Mga password. Uy, what's wrong with you? Wait lang guys Parang, uy, what's wrong with this? Okay, there. So Emily, a bookkeeper for a small business, is reviewing the financial records of the company. She notices that there is an increase in accounts payable, a liability account from recording a utility bill. Which of the following statements accurately explains the impact of this increase on the accounting equation? Select the best response and then select submit. So ito, objective na to, right? Right, so the increase in liabilities will increase the owner's equity. Hindi naman. It's not true, right? The increase in liabilities will decrease assets. Hindi naman necessarily, right? A bookkeeper for a small, she knows there is an increase in accounts payable. So nag-increase sa yung accounts payable because of a utility bill. So utility bill is an expense, di ba? Right. So an increase in liabilities will increase assets. Posible, pero in this example, wala namang asset. And then the increase in liabilities will decrease the owner's equity. Possible to, di ba? Kasi expense eh. Ang expense an increase in expense is a decrease in income. Therefore, a decrease in equity. Right? So D, right? Kasi dalawang account lang to eh, liability and expense. Nag-increase yung expense, pag nag-increase yung expense, mag-decrease yung income. 'Di ba? Pag nag-decrease yung income, mag-decrease yung equity. Tama? So D tayo. Yung iba na nag-guess naman yung hindi Hindi ata increase in asset kasi wala namang possible naman na mag-increase yung liability, mag-increase din yung asset kung inutang yung asset, right? But in this example or in this scenario, yung bookkeeper is reviewing the financial record and notices an increase in AP. So AP tapos brought about by a utility bill, right? So yung bill is an AP, is an expense, right? So B, magbabayad. So an increase in liabilities will decrease assets. An increase in liabilities will decrease assets. Pag nagbayad ka, decrease yung liability, decrease naman yung asset. So pareho lang. Right? Offsetting lang. So hindi pwedeng increase in liability tapos nag-decrease yung asset. Kasi nga, payment, pag nag-pay ka, debit mo yung liability, which is a reduction in liability, credit mo yung asset, which is most likely cash. So again, offsetting lang. Decrease in liability, decrease din yung asset. Di kasi naman hindi magdabayan ngayon. So what is our answer? D ba? I think D, right? Sige, D. Para makamove on tayo. Kasi 14 na. 15 na. So correct. An increase in liabilities will decrease the owner's equity. The accounting equation, which is assets, liabilities plus owner's equity, helps maintain balance in financial records. In this scenario, an increase in liabilities means that the business owes more to external parties, such as loans or debts. As a result, the owner's equity, which increase represents the residual interest in the business, decreases from the expense of the utilities, which lowers net income and therefore owner's equity. Oh, tama yung reasoning natin. D, 1,000,000%. Thank you, Mary Chris. Next, you're a bookkeeper for a small bakery. You use a double entry accounting method or system to record the financial transactions of the bakery. On June 1, you receive $500 cash advance from a customer for a large cake order that will be delivered on June 15. So advance payment ito. You issued a receipt to the customer and deposited the cash in the bank. So question, how would you record this transaction in the double entry accounting system? So is it debit to accounts receivable, credit to unearned revenue? Hindi na accounts receivable kasi nga naka-receive ka ng cash, di ba? So A is wrong. Next, debit to cash, 500, credits to accounts receivable. Hindi rin kasi wala ka namang AR kasi nga binayaran ka in advance ng customer. Right? So next, debit to cash, credit to unearned revenue. So meron kang cash, meron ka ding liability because hindi mo pa naman na-deliver yung cake. Diba? So C could be the correct answer, but let's try D. Debit unearned revenue, 500, credit cash, 500. So I think C would be the correct answer. Wait lang guys, parang sinisingil na ako ng, ng counter. Wait lang, miss. Sabihin ko na muna. Wait. Or can I just come to you? Are you closing at 9?
Yes.
I'll be done by 9. I'll come to you. Thank you. Or miss, sorry. I think I found my wallet already. So give me a sec. Here.
I'll be back soon.
Sure, thanks. All right, let's go next. Sana ganito ang mga questions sa exam. O nga eh. But this is already tough, no? Very, very tough already. Next, Tom, a bookkeeper for a small business, notices that his good friend Frank, an employee, has been using their company credit card for personal expenses. What should Tom do to uphold bookkeeper ethics? Select the best response and then select submit. Oh, ito na yung ethics na question. Report the unauthorized use of a company credit card to the owner or the appropriate authority. Cancel Frank's credit card. Grabe naman, agad-agad. Stay quiet about the situation since Frank is a good friend and it does not directly impact Tom's work responsibilities. And then confront the Frank. Grabe naman, confront the Frank. Bagay lang si Frank. So, confront Frank. Wala na yung da. Confront Frank directly and ask them to stop using the company credit card. So, i-report mo agad si Frank. Hala ka dyan. Baka matanggal si Frank sa trabaho. na-report mo siya kaagad. So report the unauthorized use of the company credit card to the owner or the appropriate authority. Diba? So, wala man lang warning kay Frank. Hindi naman pwedeng i-cancel agad yung credit card ni Frank, diba? Kasi you're overstepping your authority. Hindi ka naman pwedeng magstay quiet kasi baka ikaw pa yung managot. Tapos i-confront mo si Frank, baka awayan ka ni Frank. Charet. So I think the best answer is letter A. Everyone in agreement naman. Right, so let's submit. Correct. So upholding bookkeeper ethics involves acting in the best interest of the organization and maintaining financial integrity. Part of the bookkeeper's oath is to maintain objectivity. In this scenario, Tom has discovered that Frank is misusing the company credit card for personal expenses. Even though Frank is a good friend, Tom must let his personal feelings get in the way of performing his ethical duty. Tom should report this unauthorized use to the owner or the appropriate authority within the company. Right. Next, what is an asset in accounting? So an asset is a claim to a portion of a business net worth. This is likely an equity definition. Next, a resource with economic value that the business owns or controls. This is likely the answer, but let's check the other two. A debt or obligation that the business owes. This is liability. And a record of all money that comes in and goes out of a business. This is cash flow statement. So the answer should be letter A, B, right? Let's hit submit, and that's correct. Let's move on, kasi 5 minutes na lang. You're a bookkeeper for a small veterinary clinic that provides medical service and sells pet supplies to customers. You use the modified cash basis accounting method to record the financial transactions of the clinic. In June, the following transactions occurred. So ano yung modified? Modified is cash basis yung income, accrual yung expenses, right? So next, first transaction, provided medical services at $200 each to 50 customers. Next, 40 customers paid in June. So cash basis, di ba? Accrual yung expenses. So 40 customers paid by June 30. 10 customers are scheduled to pay on July 10. Sold 5,000 of pet supplies for cash, paid 3,000 in expenses for rents, utilities, and salaries on June 30. Then purchased $2,000 of pet supply inventory from a supplier on June 15 with a due date of July 15. How would you report your revenue and expenses for June under the modified cash basis accounting method? So magkano yung revenue? Revenue again is cash basis, 'di ba? Pag modified, accrual kapag expense. So ano lang yung sales dito? 40 customers paid by June. So ito yung 40 times 200, right? So that's the revenue plus the ones that paid cash for 5,000. So 40 times 200 magkano? 8,000? Tama ba? 8,000 plus 5,000 should be 13,000 in sales, right? So revenue should be 13,000. Yung expenses niya, paid siya ng 3,000 in utilities. Yun yung, kasi accrual basis siya eh, kapag expenses. So purchase 2,000 of pet supply inventory from a supplier. Kung ang pet supply, so expense, wait lang, accrual, di ba? So expense niya na yung 2,000 kahit pa babayaran niya pa ng July 15. So 5,000 na expense, tama? So 13 in revenue, 5 in expenses. Tama? So B. Tama ba? B? Yung iba C. So C, hindi kasama yung inventory. Pwede rin naman kasi kung supply inventory, asset naman yung inventory, di ba? Hindi naman siya expense. 2K is inventory, asset. Tama. So, dapat C. Hindi 5 yung expense. C, no? Oh, good job. Asset po yung 2K. So, 13 na revenue, again, because we're using cash basis. Tapos, expense is accrual. Yung last na transaction na 2,000 is not an expense kasi inventory, ibibenta niya kasi yun, di ba? So, tama tayo, C. So C. Oh, lahat na nag-C. So, try natin. Correct. So, muntik na tayo doon. So, wag na natin to explain. Basta C. Kasi nga, yung pang-last na item, that was inventory. Hindi siya expense, but it's an asset. Next, Samantha, a bookkeeper for a small business, discovers a significant financial discrepancy in the company's records. After careful investigation, she realizes that the error was made by her colleague, Mark, who is also responsible for maintaining the books. Samantha is conflicted about what to do next. What should Samantha do to uphold bookkeepers' ethics? So, significant financial discrepancy because of a colleague's mistake, no? So first is fix this discrepancy yourself without involving anyone else to avoid the potential conflict. Report the discrepancy to her supervisor or the company owner. Confront Mark directly and demand that he rectify the error immediately, or the discrepancy was not Samantha's mistake. She decides to let Mark deal with the consequences. So, ano tayo? Sip-sip tayo sa owner. So, i-report natin yung discrepancy. Para din yung supervisor will discipline Mark, di ba? May coaching siya kay Mark para hindi niya na commit yung the same mistake, right? So I think best response, ba, lahat pwede naman tong gawing response, but itong letter B would be the best, right? Everyone in agreement? I think B, yeah. Correct. So part of the bookkeeper's oath is to act with integrity and honesty. Alam na natin yan. Natin basahin. Kasi 9 na. Tapusin na lang natin to. You're a bookkeeper for a small law firm that provides legal services to clients on a monthly retainer basis. You use accrual accounting to record the financial transactions of the firm. In June, you billed 10 clients for a total of 20,000, but only 8 of them paid you by June 30. The other clients paid 2,000 each on July 10. You also incurred 5,000 in expenses for rent, utilities, and supplies in June, which you paid on June 30. Question: how would you report your revenue and expenses for June under the matching principle? So, anong gamit niya? Accrual ba? So, accrual. So, accrual, revenue when earned regardless of when received, right? So, kung yung 20,000 ay na-bill niya in June, lahat ng 20,000 is an income, right? Or revenue. So 20,000, we're only looking at letter B or letter D. Then on the expenses, you incurred 5,000 for expenses revenue which you paid on June 30. So 5,000. Bakit may 4,000 na choice? Wala namang 4,000 na expense, diba? So answer should be letter B, right? Letter B. Submit. Correct. Next, you're the owner of a small landscaping business that provides lawn care services to residential customers. You charge $100 per service and you usually get paid at the end of the month. In June, you provided one service each to 10 different customers, but only 8 of them paid by June 30. The other 2 customers paid by July 5. Question: how would you report your revenue for June under accrual accounting and cash basis accounting? So, dalawang accounting method, right? Kung accrual, lahat ng income recorded, right? So, kung 100 tapos 10, that's 1,000, right? So, accrual 1,000, kung cash basis, base lang yun sa collection. So, yung collected mo is 8, that's 8 times 100, that's 800. Kasi yung other 200 will be revenue na by July. So in June, yung income mo is 1,000 for accrual, 800 for cash basis. Right? So B. Bakit may D? Accrual accounting, ay mali. D. Accrual accounting, 1,000, cash basis, 800. So it should be D, right? Okay, correct. So accrual, again, when earned, regardless of when received, right? Yung payment. So yun yung premise doon. Next, put the steps of the accounting cycle in order. Madali na lang to. Step 1 is collect and analyze. Again, that's very important. Second is record and posting. Third is preparation of unadjusted. Next is adjusting entries. Next is preparing of the adjusted trial balance. And then finally is the preparation of financial statements. Tama ba? So, analyze, record, adjustment. Uy, mali. So, asan dito yung prepare, adjusting entries, right? Thank you, Weng. So, tama na to. Unadjusted, adjusting entries, adjusted trial balance, financial statements. All right. Next, John owns a small bakery and also has a personal investment portfolio. He uses his personal bank account for both his business and personal transactions. He also has a separate bank account for his personal investment income and expenses. How should John apply the economic entity assumption? Ito yung separate dapat yung recording, ha? So he should combine all his transactions in one bank account and report them as one entity. This is a no-no, right? This is a no-no. Next, he should leave the accounts the way they are. This is also a no-no. Next, he should separate his transactions to 3 bank accounts, one for his bakery, one for his personal affairs, and one for his investments. This appears to be the correct statement. Let's look at the other one. He should separate his transaction into 2 bank accounts, one for his bakery and investment, and one for personal affairs. I think this one is better, right? Between the two, the third choice is the best, right? So let's submit. And that's correct, right? Next, what is a credit in accounting? So a record of money owned or owed by a customer, no, this is liability. A record of money paid by a customer or a supplier, this is also collection. An increase in an asset or a decrease in liability, this is incorrect, this is debit. And a decrease in asset or expense or an increase in liabilities, owner's equity, and revenue. So this is the answer, letter D, right? So a credit is a decrease in asset or expense or an increase in liabilities, owner's equity, or revenue. Normal balance dong, liability, equity, and income ang credit, right? And the opposite on the asset. Oh, masa tayo. It's still good. Your score is 90%, passing score is 70 lang naman. So okay pa tayo. Congratulations. All right, but okay naman yun. At least inanalyze natin yung mali natin, 'di ba? Carry lang 'yun. Right? Hindi natin kailangan maging perfect, right? So what you learned, defining accounting and the concepts of accounting, measurement, explaining. Yeah, congratulations to everyone. We passed and now we have completed the bookkeeping basics. Amazing. Right. How do you guys feel about that? Right? Sabay-sabay nating natapos yung bookkeeping basics na hindi natin minadali, right? We took time to learn the concepts. And again, that's the most sustainable way of learning. Hindi kailangan madaliin because it's gonna be our foundation, right? Imagine if you're building a house, minadali natin yung pag-build ng house just so mabilis tayong maka-earn ng dollars. But then because we don't know the principles by heart, we make mistakes along the way, and sometimes mistakes can cost us our jobs, right? So, sabi nga nila, prevention is better than cure, di ba? So before we make mistakes, i-prevent na natin na mag-commit tayo ng mistake, right? Because again, mistakes can not only set a very bad impression on the client, but also can cost us our jobs, right? So, ayaw natin mangyari yun sa atin. Anyways, guys, it's been a great session today. Ang dami natin natutunan. That was quite a brain cells consumption, di ba? Para ang dami nating na consume na brain cells doon. But it is what it is. Nagpa-practice tayo to become the best bookkeeper there is. And soon, the best tax preparer as well. Para mas imagine again, 1 year, 2 years from now, BA will explode, right? All of you will become really, really good bookkeepers, really, really good tax preparers. And then you will have your own firm. Some of you may be managers na in 2 years' time, 3 years' time. And when you grow, you will also bring others with you, right? Because we will grow, 'di ba? Kasi nga magagaling tayo eh. Magagaling tayo in the future. Our clients would love us. They will refer us to more clients. Our managers are gonna admire us the way we do things, and they would look around for more of us, right? Sasabihin, bakit si JR ang galing nitong mag-bookkeeping? Bakit si JR ang galing nitong mag-tax prep? Hindi naman to accounting background. Saan mo natutunan to JR tong mga to, 'di ba? Tatungin ng employer. So mag-refer ka nga JR ng more employees kasi gusto kong mag-grow yung firm ko. Right? And then JR would bring along people from borderless accountants because he knows the training that we have here, 'di ba? Hindi natin minamadali yung training. We make sure that we understand the concepts para hindi tayo one step forward, two steps backward. Right? Ganun minsan kasi, 'di ba? Move forward nga tayo, but whenever we make a mistake, it sets us back more than the steps we've taken forward, 'di ba? So let's take a time, right? Have patience, right? Ganun talaga. But it is what it is if we are gonna make it big in the things that we're gonna do. Right, so tapos natin step 1. Magva-volunteer na ba for the second step? Si Ma'am Shoni ba? Sa'yo yung reconciliation? Have you made up your mind about the recon?
Ano, ano ba i-di-discuss diyan sa ano o may practice at ano ba 'yan?
Meron din. The way we did the bookkeeping basics. So, I guess if you have the time, check out Ma'am Sean and see if that's something that you can cover. Otherwise, I can continue naman. But I would really love for someone else naman to do it. The way, kasi alam niyo na how I navigated yung first step. And I'm sure a lot of you are mas magagaling pa nga siguro kayo sa akin eh. It also is a step towards, you going out of your comfort zone to really go out there and make a presentation kasi you will also grow, right? Matagugulat kayo, kaya niyo palang mag-explain, magugulat kayo, kaya niyo palang mag-navigate nung Zoom meeting. And it really matters a lot. It really matters a lot when you are able to do it because as you progress towards a career, if you're in the employment route, if you take leadership role, syempre, would follow a higher pay, di ba? Professional growth. So, think about it. Meron naman na kayo, pareho naman tayo may access sa QBO na course. If any one of you, including Ma'am Shawnee, can take over the module 2, no? Module 2 out of 1 out of 4 na kasi tayo. I'll give you the opportunity to lead the discussion starting tomorrow, right? Or maybe we can agree on kanino yung day na to or kanito yung topic na to para lang meron tayong opportunity for others to showcase, yung teaching skills nyo. Alam ko marami ditong teachers eh. Marami ditong mga
Yes.
CPAs na or accountants. You are free, no? I'm encouraging you to also step up and show us what you've got. Diba?
Baka yung ibang gustong mag-volunteer diyan para makilala.
Oo nga eh. Diba?
Kasi
So,
hindi namin kilala yung iba pa.
correct.
Hmm.
So, try natin. Mag-reach out kayo tomorrow. Let's connect. And then may i-share din ako sa inyo tomorrow about basta yung napag-usama namin ni Nima sa LinkedIn. Ngayon ko sana i-share kaso 11 minutes past the hour 9 na tayo. Tapos parang i-kick out na ako dito sa Solea kasi nag-overtime na ako. Ako na lang mag-isa dito actually. Siningil na nga ako eh kasi uuwi na ata yung nasa counter. So I'll share that stuff with you tomorrow. And then again, sino sa inyo ang pagtingin niyo sa module number 2 ay kaya niyo naman tong i-discuss or comfortable kayong i-discuss kasi it's your cup of tea. Let us know. Okay, let me know. Hit me a message on DM or GC or however way you want to let me know and we can arrange for it. Okay, I'll be very, very glad to see someone else doing the presentation. And anyway, we are naming magsusupport sa iyo. Right? And also, hindi mo kailangan maging perfect. Okay? Kita niyo naman, may mga mali nga ako eh, di ba? So, that's how we learn, right? That's how we learn. Wala tayong perfect dito. Kasi kung may perfect, dapat nasa ano na yan. Iba na yung ginagawa niyan. Di ba? So, wag kayong matakot i-judge. Kasi, iba tayo dito. We're all learners. Right? We are all hungry and foolish. Pagdating sa bookkeeping and tax. Right? So, having said that, thank you guys for tonight. I hope maganda yung tulog niyo today. Huwag niyong dibdibin yung 10% kasi naka 90% naman tayo. And you all have a good night. See you guys again tomorrow. Ma'am Sean, may review ba?
Marami naman yung yata dito, maraming kaya magre-review kami.
Sige, magre-review kayo. I'll make you a host.
Kahapon kasi
Thank you
wala.
guys for tonight.